present. If you would, please join me in saying the invocation. Dear Lord, we thank you for bringing us all together again tonight to do the people's business. We ask that you please keep your hands upon us, keep us safe, and to lead us in our deliberations. Amen. Please join me in saying the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving down to announcements and communications, just like to remind everyone that we have the Meeting Street Music Festival coming up in September. What's the dates on that? 16th. Oh, it should be a great time. We got anything else y'all want to remind folks about? Good news. Filing is open for the mayor and city council. If anybody's interested in running, get on out and file. Good to see y'all out there. No other announcements at this time. We'll move on down to item 6.1, which is a matter that affects me directly, and I will recuse myself from any discussion of it. Hand it over to Mayor Pro Tem Bedell.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 6.1, a resolution recognizing Mayor Tim Miles for receiving the Post-Courier Columbia's Most Powerful Award. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you all.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will be happy to read the resolution for you guys. This is the resolution recognizing Mayor Tim Miles for receiving the Post and Courier Columbia's Most Powerful Award. Whereas Timus Clifford Tim Miles Jr. was born on September 8, 1978 in Florence County. A native of Lake City, South Carolina, Tim worked in the local grocery store, on tobacco farms, and with his father on rental properties. He graduated from Lake City High School in 1996 and attended college at the Citadel. After graduating in 2000, Tim worked at Southeastern Freight Lines, where he worked until he entered Thomas M. Cooley School of Law in Lansing, Michigan. In 2006, Mayor Miles earned his Juris Doctorate degree with cum laude honors and was admitted into the South Carolina Bar Association later that same year. Mayor Miles is married to Cassie Miles and has 3 daughters, Emma, Kate, and Charlotte. And whereas in 2006, Tim Miles Jr. began his legal career as a law clerk to the Honorable Paul E. Short Jr. at the South Carolina Court of Appeals. He then served as staff counsel in the South Carolina Senate's Office of Senate Research. In 2010, he entered private practice with the McKay firm, where he practiced civil litigation and became a partner. In 2020, he opened the Miles Firm, LLC, where he continues to practice civil litigation throughout the state in all levels of state court, federal, and administrative courts. And whereas in 2013, Tim Miles Jr. was elected to serve on the West Columbia City Council to represent District 4. In 2019, he was elected mayor of West Columbia. Tim represents the city of West Columbia on the Joint Municipal Water Sewer Commission, is a member of the Municipal Mayors Association, and is a member of the Basilica of St. Peter's. And whereas during his time serving the city of West Columbia, Tim has been influential in expanding sewer services for economic redevelopment in the Western 378 corridor, implementing citywide litter and blight removal programs, adding police, dispatchers, fire, EMT, and public works personnel, and adding much-needed equipment to city departments. Live streaming all council meetings to increase transparency and accessibility, the continued growth of the River District, and the expansion of Caraway Park to include an all-inclusive playground for children of all abilities. And whereas Timus C. Tim Miles Jr. has been recognized as a recipient of the Post and Courier Columbia's 2023 Most Powerful Award. The Most Powerful list is an annual ranking that recognizes individuals who bring power and influence to the Columbia area culture, economy, and to the corporate and political arena. And now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of West Columbia does hereby recognize Mayor Tim Miles for being named as one of the Post and Courier Columbia's 2023 Most Powerful. City Council would like to honor and congratulate Mayor Miles for this award and for his years of dedicated, unwavering, and excellent service to the West Columbia community and its citizens. City Council wishes Mayor Miles continued success in the future. Adopted this 21st day of August, 2023.
Thank y'all for recognizing that. It's great to be recognized by Post Couriers, even better to be recognized by y'all. There's a lot of strong individuals on the city council. There's folks who get along, there's folks who don't. But at the end of the day, when things come before this council, we vote together. I'd say probably 95, 96% of the time. There's a lot of agreement on this city council. And I am thankful for the progress that we've had over the 10 years that I have served, both as a city council member and as the mayor of the city of West Columbia. We've got a lot of things to do, there's still a lot of room for improvement, but each and every one of you played a part in things that made this city better, and I thank you for it. Thank y'all. Y'all come on up and read this with me.
Oh, Mayor, if I may too. I think we should also add that you are one of the most expert trailer back rubbers that I've ever seen.
Well, thank you, that means a lot. Thank you all. Everybody can lead the way on that. Moving down to item 6.2 is a presentation regarding the comment. We will recognize Ms. Lil Moody. Come on up, if you would, say your name for the record. We thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for letting me come talk with you. My name is Lil Moody, and I'm Lexington County's representative on the governing board for the county, from Central Midlands Regional Transit Authority. I didn't really plan to do a formal presentation. I hope this will be more of a conversation because I do want to be as responsive as I can to questions you may have about the bus system and any questions that you have about that. But I'll try to kind of set the stage with a little bit of history so that we are all starting at the same point. And I apologize to those of you who already know all the things that I'm going to say. But the Central Midlands Regional Transit Authority started back in 2002. And before that, the bus system was the Columbia City Bus System, and it was run by the SCEG. That history comes from a time that when, in order to have a monopoly on the utilities for the area, the public utilities were required to run public transportation systems. And I don't know how you look at the things that people say you have to do versus the things that you want to do, but I would just say that was something that was done out of necessity. It wasn't the driving force for our public utility, but the city of Columbia ran the bus system up until around 2002. And then they decided that they wanted to not be in that business anymore, that wasn't required enough. They turned the bus system over to the city of Columbia, and the city of Columbia immediately worked to get a law passed that established a regional transit authority so that the buses, public transportation would be planned for all of Richmond and Lexington County. the service area, because I don't have to tell you all that, we've got a river that runs down there, but people's lives don't stop at the river. They go back and forth, for a lot of different reasons, and I'm glad for that. I've raised my children in Columbia, and I've been living in Chester for over 30 years, so I've lived in both parts of this area. Okay, so that the Regional Transit Authority is established in the law, and the governing board, as it's stated in that law, is done through an intergovernmental agreement. And so the numbers in the intergovernmental agreement are Lexington County, Richland County, the City of London, the City of Forest Acres, and then the legislative delegation. And so each one of those entities has a designated number of representatives on the governing board. There are 11 of us voting members on the governing board, and then there are any jurisdiction in any of the service area is invited to have an advisory member on the board. Mike Green is the one, is your representative from the advisory board member from West Columbia. And Mike can tell you that advisory board members can do anything, all the board members do there in every conversation, get all of the information, all the rest of us get, we just don't vote. But I'll also tell you that it's really rare when a vote on the governing board is some kind of split, but most of the decisions get made through a process of consensus, and so it's not like a real way in terms of votes and not. I've served in positions as Chapin's representative when this started, and I'll tell you, when they first formed the RTA and Butch Fires was the chair, every jurisdiction had a number on board. It was 39 over. And you just look around you and see what it's like to do business with the size of your city council. You can imagine what trying to do business with a 39 member board. And so really I would say to you that during that time, most of the decisions were made by the executive committee because it's just unmanageable number. So it got restructured over the years, and now we are in that 11 member board. All right, so then in that transfer from SCE&G, they had to transfer some funds, and so we knew we had enough funds to last a little while, but there had to be a basis for funding the bus system when that funding ends. We do collect fares from people who ride, but just like every other transportation system in the world, those fares don't cover the cost of providing the service. Just like our gas taxes don't cover the cost of having roads for us to drive on. The same thing is true in public transit. And so what Richland County did, ultimately, trying to plan toward when that time that we had some funds to get started, what would we do after that in order to have funds to operate the system? And that's when they passed the Kennedy tax. That was a transportation tax. I know you're familiar with this. That the transit system gets 29% of one penny, and not quite a third of one penny to operate the transit system, and the rest goes to roads and bicycle paths and sidewalks. So, and that has a time limit, and that will be coming up in fairly short time, a few years, that the citizens of Richland County will have to decide if that's what they want to continue to do, and whether that's what they want to do. Lexington County took a different path, and what Lexington County decided to do was that they would just pay for the cost of services that came to Lexington County. So rather than having a plan for developing transportation over the whole thing, area, then Lexington County said we will provide the funding for the actual cost of bringing buses into Lexington County. And what they did was create a transportation work group that came out of the county council that had all of the jurisdictions on the work group, West Columbia being one part of that, to say, this is the cost of the routes that come here now. if we want to add, what will that cost be? And then together decide as a transportation group for Lexington County, do you want that? Is there something else you want? Is there something you want more? And then the comments role was to work with the county to do technical support information, tell you what it's cost, and then when Lexington County says this is what we want, or collectively we say that this is what we want, then to provide the service and be sure it meets all the quality standards for public transportation. So that's how it worked for a while, and what we have now coming into Lexington County, we have several routes. The most heavily traveled route is the Casey route that comes in, goes Midlands Tech, goes out to the airport. That's generally where it goes. The West Columbia route is listed 96L as called a local route because it just comes over in the morning, connects with that Route 91 in Casey in several places. There are several bus stops where those connect. But then it runs a route around that part of West Columbia during the day. In other words, every bus that comes doesn't go back to Columbia and come back. It runs those routes in West Columbia during the day. And all of the routes end about between 7 and 8 o'clock at night. The other routes that actually have some mileage in Lexington County, one is the 92X, and that's the express route that was established to go out to all the industrial development there, Nephron and Dominion and Amazon, and those are. And it's an express route because it's really designed for commuters. Runs 2 routes early in the morning and 2 routes in the afternoon. So people who want to get to and from work out there can take that bus. So that's the kind of a special one. Another one is the Soda Cap Connector, which is the downtown circulator. And really we're moving, and that was really intended to try to help some of the congestion in the downtown areas of Columbia so that people coming out going to lunch in cars and that you could get around more easily. What we kind of move toward now, and there's some recent developments, is where it'll be more like when visitors come to our area, when you get kind of that on and off bus that goes to destinations that people want to reach. So that particularly for visitors, that will be an asset. And it comes across the river and right into the area where the West Columbia River Walk is, and right in that part. So that comes into Lexington County. And the other route that has some Lexington County miles in it is A01, and it's the one that goes up to Harveston and around there. So, that area it's like we are in Chapin, that you have to watch where you step and then whether you're in Richmond or Lexington County, because that will find vehicles going. So that's kind of the map of how we got started and where we are now. Things were going all right until what hit all of us was the pandemic. And what happened during the years of the pandemic was that we really just had to swing it down, and we had less going on, people doing less, but the essential nature of the main service that the public transportation system provides is getting people to work. And so most of the people who are riding the bus every day are going to work, are going home. And then we have people doing the other things they need to do in their lives, getting to health care. That's one of the important features of the West Columbia route because it goes to Lexington Medical Center. And I can tell you, they've got people coming from Columbia over here now because we have the physician practices that we moved, and so a number of those physicians now are headquartered at Lexington. So that's another big part of that. And Lexington Medical Center has always been a participant in that transportation work. We've been a contributor to the cost of the system running buses here because they recognize the value to them, both for getting employees there and for people getting their services. So during the time that we were kind of hanging on by our fingernails with the pandemic, we didn't have this. We had the transportation work group sort of didn't meet in there for a while, and I can't explain all of the reasons for that. And we had some turnover in leadership at the common itself. And so for a period of a couple of years in there, what happened was when the Lexington County had to say, well, now, what are jurisdictions going to pay for into the cost of services in Lexington? They pretty much just said, well, what you paid last year, little cost of living, but it wasn't that precise calculation of exactly what each mile would cost to run. Plus, we really didn't have a good way of sitting down with people in each of the areas in Lexington County and saying, what do people where you live need in terms of services? So we tried some things like an express bus to Batesburg, Leesville. We've sat down with them recently, but that was not a success, and the reason was because that wasn't what people needed, going back and forth once a day from Columbia to Batesburg. What they need, what they tell us now they really need is getting people around within Batesburg and getting people to nearby employers, but that's not a once a day. We did the same thing when the health department and VSS in Lexington County moved out toward White Knoll and Highway 6, and we tried running a bus out there once a week to try to help people who needed to get there. And I can tell you, you can't build ridership on a once a week bus. I mean, that just doesn't need enough need to really work, be economically feasible, or to work for people in their lives. So we've tried some things, but what I'm encouraged about now is just recently, the Lexington County Administrator and Robbie Derrick, who's over community services, and this is the transportation in Lexington County falls within that. They have reactivated the transportation work group so that we have a way again of just sitting down as people from Lexington County and figuring out what do we need in terms, and what are the specific needs for people in different areas of the county, which differ a lot, because Lexington, a lot of it now is urban, but a whole lot of it is still rural. And so it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of operation. And so I'm encouraged that that's the way that we'll be going back to that way of planning for services. And then everybody who's in Lexington County has a seat at that table. That's where the decisions would get made. That's where the costs would be worked out within the county. And then that's Lexington County overall would be, they are the ones who actually pay the money to the RTA because they're the designated number of that group. I can ramble on a long time, but I know you didn't come for a lecture, but I just wanted to give you enough foundation for us to have a conversation, and I can hear what's on your mind. So what else do we need to talk about?
With the return to the transportation work group, is it your understanding that Lexington County will go back to billing the municipalities and process payment being passed through basically to the county?
Yes.
I think that created some issues here for us
That created issues?
several years ago, so I'm glad to hear.
You mean when it stopped doing it?
That's right. Yes.
I can see how that would be very confusing.
I'm glad to hear they're going to return that to you.
Right. And Lexington County itself contributes a good portion of what that cost is too. So it's a combination. It's not just divided up among them.
You did a wonderful job giving us a history and an overview of the operations of the entire system. So thank you so much. Anyone else?
I got a couple quick questions for you. First question is, there's 11 voting members on that advisory board. I'm sure the city of Casey's on there. We're on there. Is the town of Lexington on there?
We, and when I say we, I'm talking about those of us in Lexington County, have tried to get the town of Lexington interested in participating, but they've never participated.
But there's no bus routes to go there either.
Well, you can know that better than I have maps, but I'm sure there's some that go close and near, but really and truly, there's no bus route that goes directly to a place, to the center of county government. Which
No,
I think is really an important place for us to have the public.
I think we looked at it a couple of years ago, and the closest that we knew of was the bus stop at Lexington Medical. And I think one of the issues, and I think with us giving money, is if we're giving a dollar amount to you guys, I really do feel like we deserve and we should have a voting member on that board, at least one. And it should be divided up that way. It's just like with any of the other things, municipal, joint municipal, things like that. I really would like for you guys to look at expanding it or taking, I mean, I do feel like we need a seat. We do have bus routes that go through our town, and we have it just as much as probably Forest Acres does. So I do feel like it would be good if we had a voting seat on that board that would help make some of those decisions. Because without that, I don't see a reason for us to even fund it.
Well,
Just to piggyback on that. When that issue consideration first came up, Brian, or you correct me if I'm wrong, you know the ins and outs, a lot better than anybody else does. I think that we were fine with not having direct representation as long as we were being billed and paid to the county, like everybody else, and participating in the transportation work group. And then when that ended, and they asked West Columbia to directly participate, the county was going to continue to collect and bill other municipalities in Lexington County. We felt like if we were going to be treated differently, and expected to directly contribute to the common, we certainly need to be treated like every other direct participant. But a lot of my concerns with that are alleviated if we're going to go back to the transportation work group model and have the county do the billing and collecting and contributing. So I think a lot of the issues that we had originally may be resolved by this change back in mind.
well, that is my hope too, and through that period of confusion, when the transportation work group got back together, the decision was that we're not gonna try to untangle what went wrong, what got confused, you know, who can do that? We're just want to start fresh, the way we originally intended, and I want to speak to your need to have a voice, because I agree, I think that's a really important thing that West Columbia have a voice, but the way this funding is done in Lexington County, the place to have a voice is in the Lexington Transportation Work Group, because that's the place that the decisions get made about what roads you want, where you want buses to run, how often, where, and so your participation there is essential, and really much more than, I think, on the governing board, and I'm sure you can understand how, well, I mean, the common itself doesn't have the authority to say who's going to be on the board and all that. So all that you have to change the law to do that, to change that makeup. But I think that to make it workable, as the mayor's just said, to have the people who are involved in how are we going to supply public transportation in this county, that's where your voice is the key place to have it. And I hope that you all will use your influence to get the town of Lexington to be a participant. I just think that's vital, because when he said you guys, I mean, I'm one of you guys. I'm a Lexington County resident, so I'm one of this.
And I think that's a good point about the transportation group in Lexington County. What's the breakdown of members now? Lexington, Richland, Forest Acres, and Legislative.
You mean what is it?
How many are from Lexington County? How many are from Richland?
Okay, out of the 11, the way the law reads now is that Richland County appoints 3, the city of Columbia appoints 3, the city of Forest Acres appoints 1, Lexington County appoints 1, and the legislative delegation appoints 3. And that's because the state provides about $500,000. Now, we're talking about an overall about a $30 million budget, and they provide about $500,000, but that's the way the law is written in that state. That I will tell you that I'm advocating, that one of those legislative delegation votes, those appointments, that ought to be Lexington County appointment, because state funds look at the whole population. Lexington's about a third of the population of the service area, and Richmond 2/3. And so only fair, and I'm an advocate for that, so that would be another voting.
Lil, thank you for coming, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Did I hear you correctly, or maybe I misunderstood? Did you say that you think it is fair that Lexington County has 1 and Richland County has 10?
Well, I'm fair, I'm telling you what the law provides for. But when Lexington County is contributing around $160,000 to a $30 million budget, I mean, it depends on how you want to do that, what proportion of that. So I'm not saying it's fair, I'm saying the reason it's like that is that that's what the law is. It was set up, and if you want legal, somebody who's knows the history of that legal, we can have somebody in that conversation, have to be a part of that conversation. But that would be beyond my expertise about how that changes. But then if you say you do that in proportion to the investment, then it doesn't feel as unfair as it might otherwise.
And a follow-up question on that is, how many riders do you think we have in Lexington County then?
Okay, now what I can tell you is, I have information about the, how many rides. I can't tell you how many individual people, because we don't, we just count people that get on the bus. And so, for this fiscal year, July through May of 2023, when we count the number of people who get on and off buses in Lexington County, that was, the total ridership was 252,230. But that's over that number of months, those routes, number of people getting on and off. So those are not individuals. And for West Columbia, that number is 8,080. I can tell you from serving on the service committee for the conference that we monitor every route to see, keep up with people per hour that are riding the route, because if we fall below a certain standard, then we got to figure out how to do that efficiently. And we're charged with really 2 missions, I think. One is to operate as efficiently as we can to get the most people where we go, using the resources that we have. But we also have a responsibility, as I see it, to reach people who may be harder to reach, but who also need the public transportation system. So we try to balance those things. We have different standards for the express routes. We count those in terms of people per trip to different places. But we try to watch that, because it doesn't help any of us if we don't use the money wisely. That's how that.
And one final question is, so the penny tax is X amount of dollars, I mean, and I can't remember the amount of dollars, but some amount of dollars, or some number of years. So what is and I believe that we're coming up within 4 years of basically running out of money. So what will happen after that time?
Well, here's the way that works. It was for a designated number of years that it would be effective, or if it brought in a double amount of money before those years, it would stop at that point. And to renew that penny, it has to be done a referendum, that kind of vote again, and it has to be done in a general election year, so it can only be done in 3 years. And what the county has done, and Mike's probably well familiar with this, is what we've done is, over time, is to try to, knowing that, and knowing that you can't forget that exactly, and then you don't want to have a gap between the time that you're trying to get the new vote, is to set aside some so that we can extend, carry the services through that, those decisions and to just be sure we don't leave people stranded. You may want to know too that there are federal funds that are, that we are allowed to apply for, which we do, for everything that we possibly can. They're done in a grant form so that they will be reimbursed. Most of those go to, on capital expenses. So most of the buses, there's a 80-20 match, so that's most of the federal funds go for that. The state gasoline tax, that most of that goes for gasoline, for fuel, so the other operating expenses. You might know too, that the county itself does not hire drivers, train drivers, do all of that. We contract with an international firm right there, and that contract has to be reviewed every 5 years. It's a 5-year contract for 20 years in time. And they have to meet certain requirements, but they bring the kind of expertise in how you run the bus system. I can tell you, we're not only on the governing board that was hired, and certainly drivers and doing all the details, and that would be, we need people who know what they're doing and have resources or expertise to draw upon to do that. So I think that's a good for the bus operators.
Thank you so much for the formal presentation about that. I do have one question, and maybe you can answer it or not. I'm just curious, what's the ridership at Florence St. Chris?
I don't have those numbers before me, and I really don't know what to do identify that, because those are all routes that go through there that go to different places. For example, one of the main routes that goes through there is, seven of them, goes out to Fort Jackson, goes to Forest Drive, all the way around. So I'm pretty sure I can't tease out riders from Forest.
That's fine. That's fine.
And so I know that's the question that comes up, why is there one city that's in there? That's a part of the issue that I could.
I'm
But
curious.
I don't know what on the beside that.
I'm curious if it's not the location of
Well, that certainly is a central piece of that.
With the total funds that the county gets, I'm assuming that comes with the requirements to, I guess, provide a certain transportation or meet certain requirements within Columbia, that's right, correct?
There's requirements for,
To meet certain transportation goals within Columbia metropolitan area.
well, we have to set our, we do have to set our own goals for doing that, but then we have to be accountable to the people providing funding that other people provide support. I will tell you that we've done a lot of efforts to say, how can the bus system meet needs that people have that are riding buses every day? For example, when people were needing to get, whether it's getting the vaccines or the tests during the pandemic, we arranged to have those done at the transfer station because people have a hard time getting to appointments like that when we've done contracts with programs that are trying to help people who live in deserts to arrange for it. We can pick up some of those things that kind of through on the supplements to get them to rides to places where they can. When we looked at buses that were running late at night and what didn't have very many people on them, we thought, well, that's not a good use of funds. But we didn't want people to caught the bus to work for a second shift, and then when they got off, didn't have a way back home. So we worked out a partnership with we were just live now because we were wanting to count the people and to supplement the cost of that ride for the person in their home, because we don't want to put people in the spot. So we're trying to be sensitive to the needs of communities, other needs of communities, where transportation is part of the solution. And that's why I think the conversations in the Lexington Transportation Group are so meaningful, because you know, the ground people know what things look like there, and you're trying to solve problems for people. And public transportation can be part of the solution. That's what we want to work on today.
Thank you so much for your response.
All right.
It was. And thank you so much.
I appreciate so much you giving me this much time.
You did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Moving down to item 6.3 is a presentation regarding the 2023-2024 Rhythm on the River concert series. We'll hear from Mr. Tim James.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, thank you so very much for having me. Mayor, congratulations on the much recognized, much well-deserved recognition for the resolution.
Thank you for your kind words.
Thank you and all council for what you do. The reason for me here tonight is to talk about Rhythm on the River. I think without a doubt, every one of us have been down at least one of those shows. And it has certainly become a staple for the city of West Columbia. Give you another little history test, like we have a comment. It was 2002, February, when we cut the ribbon down at the amphitheater, February 2002. 12 short months later, we were the very first Rhythm on the River. And Rhythm on the River has been a constant ever since then, for 20 years, 20 years. And the folks of our community certainly look forward to it. And the chamber has really enjoyed being able to work with it throughout the years. Steve Cohen, who is our lead volunteer, works extremely hard on that. And with all of our other members that have come together and all of our sponsors that come together, we're able to afford it every single year. The businesses, the residents have become to where they recognize this as something that's coming. They know that it's going to be there this spring and every fall. And they continue to enjoy it. But I have to tell you that the workload of what's going on with the Rhythm on the River, balanced out to the amount of attendance, has gotten off balance a bit. The fact that we're having many shows and we're working many, many hours, and sometimes it's not the amount of people that we all know would like to show up. Well, we're not a community, nor are we the chamber to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We think it's time to be able to take a look at it and to re-gauge it and not stop it. And that's the reason that I'm here tonight, is to be able to request from you some funding to be able to assist us to be able to give this a shot and on and to be able to grow it. So I don't want to just ask you for money. I want to tell you a little bit about what we're looking to do. It's going to be a difference between the quantity and the quality. In the past, sometimes we've had 6 or 8 shows during a season. We're looking to condense that down to 3 shows and make it top line shows. Not 6, not 8, but 3. And pull that together to make it top line. We know where these acts are throughout the Midlands area that draw people. You can just look at social media alone. When you look at some of these acts, they've got thousands of followers. They're just looking to where they're going to do it next. So these are the type of acts that we'd like to bring in. So it's the quality over the quantity. Again, we're going to have 3 in the spring, 3 in the fall, and those 3 will bring in some top acts. Also, we're going to have intermission shows with some of our very local people, like our dance groups right here in the Casey, West Columbia area. If they draw a crowd and want to bring it in. We're also going to have Captain Telegram for a shuttle. 2 different reasons. Some people just enjoy getting on a shuttle and being able to come down to the river and be able to see shows for a while. But the other bigger reason is to be able to spread out the parking a bit. To be able to allow people to park in different places than versus just have to come right there. And we'll be able to signify through the media and other outlets about exactly where these parking areas will be. But some of those parking areas are going to be in the businesses because that's who we're going to park with. It's all about the economic drive. It's all about increasing the economy in West Columbia. So we've already began reaching out to many of the businesses and asking them, would you stay open a couple hours later if we're bringing people to you? Asking the restaurants, would you have a special, or could we come and be able to pick up in your parking lot, be able to bring people to the Rhythm on the River and then back to you? Certainly some of the beer gardens and whatnot throughout the community. Everybody's excited, they want to do it. And we've already reached out to folks like Terry Ward and other folks with the media who are going to support us and be able to get this out. And so guys, in October, I'll just quickly tell you what our ideas for October's gonna look like. The first show is October the 13th, and it's Friday, the 13th. So it's gonna be our spooky time. And we're gonna have folks come together, through the business shuttle and bring them whatnot. We partner with the CWC JCs and their haunted house to be able to bring some of the zombies over to this area, to be able to walk, a little river walk area and whatnot, and just make it interactive for the kids. Pets Inc., right here in West Columbia, they're gonna come and be a part of it because in the past, they've had some folks adopt dogs through this. But we're gonna bring them, and they're bringing the black cats again, because it's Friday the 13th. Then October the 20th will be the next one. This is gonna be a holiday prep and get into businesses to set up along the Riverwalk, so that they can start showing their goods, and we're gonna be in a pumpkin patch for the kids to be able to be around. And then the final, October the 27th, we're gonna couple up at Stone River, and we're gonna use their parking lot for trunk or treat. So it'll be a trunk or treat time over at Stone River, in addition to us being on the river. So that particular evening also, when we close out, we'll be only 40 short days away from the Christmas break. So we'll be encouraging folks to become part of the Christmas break. So our request tonight for 6 shows is $50,000. That's about $8,000 coming from you for each show. It still puts raising money back on us. It costs a lot more than that for every show. You can only imagine the talent, bringing things in, the tents, the stage, the folks that have to work it. It costs a great deal. But we truly believe, and I think you guys do too, this is not something that we just want to put on the shelf. It's been going too good for too long. What causes it to start to decrease? Well, that's some of the things that I've said that we can fix. But also we have to recognize here in the Midlands area, that there's something going on just about every single night, somewhere in the Midlands area. We've just got to tweak it up just a tad to make people want to come to us versus going somewhere else. So I'm grateful for everything that you have always done for the Chamber of Commerce and the Visitors Program. I appreciate your partnership in continuing to make the economy grow. Our Chamber of Commerce, those of you who were with us last Thursday night, you heard some of the stats, we continue to grow. We're growing because you guys are growing. And when we all grow together like this, we're seeing the economy take a good step forward. I truly believe that Rhythm on the River is something that continues to bring the economy to it.
And I thank you for the amazing job you've done with the chamber. There's an unbelievable vibe and atmosphere when you go to the events. The energy folks that be involved, engaged in the chamber. The event y'all had last week was just absolutely top notch. And that's got a lot to do with the leadership, revitalizing the folks around the chamber. So thanks for doing that.
Well, Mayor, I'm great. I appreciate it. I'm humbled by your comments. As you well know, it takes a team to build up, make things like this happen. And many of our team members are volunteers. Some of the hardest people in the world to manage are volunteers, but we've got a lot of great ones that want to do new things for us on the town.
And I'm excited, y'all, are revamping Rhythm on the River Club at some point. It's a great series, but it has not been able to match the level of attendance and participation that it had before the shutdown. I think this will be a wonderful way to try to help with some of that energy that people expect.
I truly believe that too. After speaking with some of the City of West Columbia leadership, our volunteer leadership, we all agree that having less shows, if you have 6, people say, well, I'll just go next week, or I'll go to next week. And then it runs out. When you have 3 good ones, they're coming to you. And that's really what we're going to try to do. And we will re-engage this after the fall series to make sure that we're on the right path for the spring series.
Anyone else, questions, comments?
I just have a comment or two, and Tim, I would say that I have been more impressed with how you are lumping businesses together with the chamber. I mean, when we talked about the business expo, you talked about staying over here, having lunch at Cafe Strudel, or going down on State Street, or having lunch at different places. Your Where is Tim's campaign, which is, a very clever, interesting idea. And even the idea that you just put forward about getting businesses involved with the Rhythm on the River, of having, the Casey, J.C.'s come in for their haunted house, Petco, et cetera, thing. Merging businesses together with people is one of the most important things of the chamber. And I applaud you for that. I mean, you've done some very innovative things along that way. But I mean, I would agree that the Rhythm on the River series has been down a little bit, and I understand. I mean, I'm not fussing at you on that, but it's just very difficult, and we need quality bands, and bands that play things that, you know, we know, not new age music, or older music.
I like to interject, when they had a nineties cover band, I mean, every word. I'd like to just, not only listen to my colleagues have said, you've done a remarkable job with your energy and everything in the chamber. I've been especially impressed with the Love Local rebrand. I think there's a lot more energy now and excitement about local businesses, which is very important because the profits that you make locally stay in local businesses. And that's how we build community wealth. And I look forward to seeing everything that you do to grow this. Every idea that you talked about sounds like community and builds excitement in the community. And that's what we need to make our place, you know, continue to grow on our specialness. So thank you so much for everything you do. And thank you to everybody that's involved that's making this happen.
Thank you, Councilman Wolf. Very much.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
We're not taking any action on that.
Mayor, all of this would require a global resolution just to authorize the funding from the hospitality fund for $50,000.
It is funding from the hospitality.
Yes, that's correct. That global resolution provides the necessary information.
At this time, I would welcome a motion to approve an expenditure of $50,000 in support of 6 concerts to be presented by the local chamber of commerce at the amphitheater to be paid from the hospitality. Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none at this time, if you're in favor, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Moving down to item 6.4, got a introduction of Mr. Alan Rickenbacker, Director of GIS. Ms. Dix.
Thank you, Mayor Council. I wanted to introduce to you Alan Rickenbacker, who was recently hired as Director of GIS from West Columbia. Alan is a graduate of the University of South Carolina. He has 3 degrees, a Bachelor of Science, a Bachelor of Arts, and a Master's degree from USC. He is previously employed with Lexington County as their planning and GIS department for 13 years. He started there as a GIS technician and then was promoted over the years to GIS manager for them. Alan and his team are responsible for maintaining and housing the county's GIS data, supporting the online mapping applications, creating custom maps and apps, and performing numerous other tasks in support of improved spatial awareness for the county. And we are fortunate to have Alan with us. He's also a resident of West Columbia.
Alan, welcome to West Columbia. I know you live here. You've been here a little while now. I don't think any of us understood how important a great in-house GIS person was until we got rolling. And we look forward to you taking over and serving us very well going forward. It is critically important. A good, efficient GIS coordinator is critically important to what we do. So we're very excited. Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to say that I use the Lexington tools a lot, and if you were in charge of all of those GIS tools, then I'm really can't think that you're going to be on our staff. That's wonderful. We're looking to see great work you do.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I am honored to be here. I'm thrilled to be a City of West Columbia employee, and I truly enjoyed this the last couple of months, getting to know everyone. Everyone's been great here. So I'm looking forward to more things to come.
We're excited to work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving down to item 6.5, we'll hear a presentation on the 2013 MASC Annual Conference from Mr. Mike Green. 2023, my apologies. It's been a long 10 years.
Thank you, Mayor. I think some of our colleagues have asked that we give a presentation about the different things that I have went to. And so I will start off with, at the Municipal Association, they've given us the civility pledge. So I would like to pass out that civility pledge to everyone. And they also have given us a button that they are advocating. As we know in politics nowadays, it is greatly divided, and there is not a lot of civility or respect. So they are pushing that at the Municipal Association: civility, respect, and solutions, because that is one of the things that we're supposed to do. And just to read the pledge: I pledge to build a stronger and more prosperous community by advocating for civil engagement, respecting others and their viewpoints, and finding solutions for the betterment of my city or town. So that was, and they had a very good speaker on that topic. One of the other things that they talked about, and that I was particularly interested in, is a youth council. I would also make a handout for you of creating a guide to creating a youth council. They have set this up. They set this up in the town of Inman. If you know Mayor Cornelius Huff, Inman is not a big town, but they have a tremendous youth council that is there. It gives our young people a chance to see how city government works, and also to see how they band together to do various projects. And in Inman, they required, and in pretty much every town, they required the youth council to do one major theme or one major goal for the year. So I would like us to consider doing that, considering starting a youth council. Some of the youth councils require no money. Some of the youth councils, they spent some money on them. Some of them have, some of them haven't. But it would be a good opportunity to do some mentorship to our youth there. Thirdly, one of my projects that I talked about with Chief Boyce before, and that is the cameras. They had an award going to a town, Sherrall. Sherrall had, they installed the flop cameras. And they had, let's see here. So in some high property crime rate soon dropped by 60%. It also allowed, they had 24 cameras installed with the town's general fund, and each camera lease was about $2,000 annually. But the system connected to the National Crime Information Center, alerting the department when it detects wanted vehicles. And I would also say that in cities with populations of 100,000 or more, 75% of the police departments are using the ALPR. That's the automatic license plate reader systems. So these are becoming more and more as we need more and more policemen on the streets and are not able to fulfill all those requirements. This is one way that we could potentially do that with automation. So it's something worth looking into, and I think it's very interesting. One of the next things is and I think this is probably one of the best, is Senator Tom Davis had a piece of legislation that was passed that allows us to use accommodation tax money to give affordable housing. There was an article in the Municipal Association magazine about that. So we could take some of our accommodations tax money and use that for affordable housing to allow, when a builder comes to us, we could designate that onto, if you would give affordable housing, we can give him certain tax breaks, or we can give him that accommodations tax. So that would be a very interesting thing. The other thing is that at the pre-conference, Mayor Knox White from the city of Greenville took us on a tour of the city of Greenville to several different places. And anytime that a developer would come to them asking for public improvements, they require that developer to give some affordable housing in their development. whether it's like 10%, 5%, 20%, or whatever. And I thought that was a very interesting thing, as we have developers who are coming to us all the time, we can ask them to potentially, if we are going to make an investment, a capital investment, to give affordable housing or some percentage of affordable housing in their units. As you know, the rents are extremely high in Lexington and extremely short, in short supply. The average rent is starting at maybe $900 to $1,000. So that's truly interesting. And then one final thing, another good piece is that the FHL Bank made a presentation there, and they have, I'll send this out to you all on email. They had that their funding through local sources gave $10,000 per household to repair owner-occupied housing. This is also in some that would be in some areas that had a FEMA or a major disaster declaration, but it's still a very interesting thing, and some of those do not have to be prepaid. And they also continue on with a $12,500 maximum funding per household for first-time home buyers to make a down payment, pay closing costs, or principal reduction assistance. And then the best thing is the $15,000 for our first responders, firefighters, healthcare workers, veterans, and active duty members of the military that are survivors, surviving spouses, and essential workers. So this is some information that we need to make sure that we are getting out to the public, and to make sure that they understand that there is some assistance for home buying, and that would be tremendous, I think.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
when you're talking about affordable housing, is this just for rentals, or is this for developers so they can provide houses at more affordable price points for sale?
I really don't know. Just to be honest, I think it's more for rentals, but I guess it could be applied to buying houses as well.
Yeah, because I remember we, in some of our conversations with Hurricane Builders, they said that it was a goal for them to try to be able to provide houses, less than $200,000, and it was a little bit of a challenge, but if there's a way we can use programs like that to help them meet that, I think that'd be a good thing.
I'll do some research on that and send you something.
Anything else? Hearing no further comments, we thank you for the information. Moving now to item 6.6, we'll hear a presentation regarding the record of towing service ordinance from Chief Boyce. While you're coming up, I'd like to thank Mr. and Ms. Wingert for their help on this. Ms. Wingert is serving a leadership in that industry and across the state. She brought this issue to our attention and proposed a fix, which I think will serve everybody very well. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, good to see everybody. We're talking about a towing ordinance proposal, change to our current towing ordinance. Just a kind of a note, since we're still on a theme of history here on this meeting. This ordinance was last updated November 2012. So don't need to remind anybody in the council, we've had several price increases in those time from 2012 to present. So unfortunately, though, we haven't looked at where those fees are at and how our towing services, local tow companies here in West Columbia that provide location pools for the police department, how they're compensated from those years back in 2012. So that's what we're proposing to change on this. I brought the copy of the ordinance that we have currently, 7-3-16. Is the only thing that we're looking at changing on the proposed changes for this ordinance. And it lists a schedule of record fees and storage charges. We are proposing to move into alignment with the Department of Public Safety and South Carolina Highway Patrol. The state, from what I understand, looks at record fees, averages of record fees from across the state and what they're seeing in different troops and different zones. And then they go through that and take that average cost and kind of analyze that and put out a fee schedule for all of the record services that you can imagine, to the state of South Carolina and the highway patrol. So we looked at those fees and what the state of South Carolina is proposing and what they have already currently in place. And we were just amending our ordinance to reflect that we will charge the same amount that the state of South Carolina does in theirs. And so if that currently changes in 2 years, then we will change those fees with that as well. The state does a good job of posting that. You can see access to all of that stuff on their website from Highway Patrol. And then it would be imperative for all of our local braking services, towing services that tow for us, or the city, to have that posted clearly in their business. And I would say one other thing, the police department does not receive any funding for any of these changes. We don't get any of that money from any of that whatsoever. So I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of that.
So it would take away the responsibility and burden of us reviewing our charges and allow the state to do that, but consider everything once a year to keep us in line.
That's correct, sir.
And this is to cover things like when cars have been in a wreck, and someone can report over to DUI, and cars have been abandoned on the highway, those types of issues, to clear the roads and keep them safe.
That's correct, sir. Yes, we take the motor vehicle provisions, disabled vehicles, stolen vehicles, abandoned vehicles, if we arrest somebody, a driver out of the vehicle. And so being able to support our local businesses that help us with that aspect.
And talking to the Wingers and several other tow operators who participate in our rotation, it's my understanding that currently they're faced with a situation where the state, most of them are also on rotation for the highway patrol. They are in a situation where they oftentimes have to choose whether they're going to turn down a highway patrol call that pays a lot more, or if they're going to go out and make a West Columbia call, and their name is called on rotation, which doesn't pay as much. And I think that's an unfair situation for those folks to be in when you're providing a service to us to help them already save lives. Anyone with anything else? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Do y'all have anything y'all like to offer?
I
Thank you.
really appreciate your voice, on here and, understanding that, you work with you guys and it's a mutual relationship.
So I expect we'll have a proposed ordinance up at one of the next meetings for us to take up.
Yes, Mayor, you will have this ordinance first reading on the September 5th council meeting.
Would it be an ordinance to read?
Yes, sir.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, sir.
Moving down to item 7.1, we'll hear from Mr. Jerry Harville. Mr. Harville, if you would come on up and say your name and your address on the record, just so we can make note.
Good to see you, Mr. Harville.
My name is David Harville. I live at 161 Brookwood Circle. And in Brookwood Circle subdivision, if you want to call it that. That's the name. Everybody just call it Brookwood because it's named. My major complaint is the street paving. Right there, on the Cal Avenue, over by small, whatever the name of the school was that they just closed down. That has been tore up since 2008. And it's turning into a real mess now. And they're going back in before, and tore up the street again, all because of that manhole, the fire hydrant there. And it's torn up a block and a half all the way down to Pine Street, where Pine Street is basically part of Brookwood Circle. They changed the name of somebody, but, I'd like to know why something can be done about that. It's been 20, I moved here in 08. It was tore up in 08, and it's been tore up ever since.
And I thank you for coming. I thought you were gonna get up and talk about the general conditions of roads, which I would agree with you on, absolutely deplorable.
Yes, sir.
So much of that is not within the city's authority to address. But if you're telling me that there's a specific issue that's related to,
Well, there's more than one. I think included.
so let's talk about this.
Brookwood's the same way. I've lived there for 20 years. And from where Brookwood comes in on 302 down by Waffle House, within a half block, maybe 15 places in the road that was tore up. And it's that way all the way around to the top of the hill. And it's all where the city has gone in and built up the street for some kind of water main or something. And I'd just like you to address some of it.
I can assure you we will go check it out.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Mr. Carter, could you address his concern? I believe his concern is on Decatur Street.
Yeah, the Taylor Street is the main street, but it's been tore up since I mean,
Yeah, with fairness to staff, I don't think it would be appropriate for anybody to address particular situations sitting here tonight without going out and first looking at it.
well, why did you pave the
Well-
street up about a mile up the street? I don't know the name of it, but you completely redid that one.
I'm more than happy to have staff check out anything you'd like us to. And I'm happy to check out the history on that section if you're telling me you're talking about it. But I'm not gonna have my staff address specific situations tonight without first having an opportunity to look into it.
Mayor, if you would allow me, I have received an email from Brian on this very situation, because I have been advocating for this street for some time, and it has been on the page list. You mind if I read the email?
Sorry, it's been on whose table list?
It's been on our page list. It was supposed to be done about a year or two ago from us. There was a water main break to the fire hydrant there that messed up the road.
All right, and how recently is that email you're talking about?
This is 8/10/23. So this is from staff, well, this was forwarded to me from Brian from staff. I'm assuming that this is Andy. We received notification of funding award from SCRIA on April 27th, 2023, but did not receive a notice to proceed notification from SCRIA until June 29th, 2023. That has pushed the estimated schedule back a minimum of 3 months. We are updating the contract instruments and anticipate submittal to RIA for review in August. During this period, we will also work with residents along Decatur Street to obtain easements for the work. Some were unwilling to grant an easement, which requires some design modifications. Generally, we have worked efficiently to move the project forward while waiting for SCRIA guidelines to ensure we do not jeopardize funding. We estimate issuing the project for bids in late September, but that is dependent upon receiving approval from SCRIA. So we will be receiving maybe some potential bids in September, but that is dependent upon receiving approval from SCRIA.
Mr. Harville, thank you for that information. Like I said, if you want to provide us the information for the road we paved a year ago, I'll be happy to have staff check and see why that was paved during that time period. And
Yes, sir, it's one that runs between, Red Springs Road and 302 comes out right there beside Old Rapids. It's probably maybe about halfway up. There's a complex there or something, and then they paved it all the way through, probably where it was on 321.
And that's Glen Street he's talking about.
Yes.
Glen Street.
Be happy to check on that.
Yes, may I ask you this? It's going to be good. Mr. Wilson, Joe Wilson,
Yes.
his dam had a problem. And it was less than 3 months. I don't know if it's a city or county, I don't care, because I'm going to the county next. But they came in and repaved the road and did a super job. and they went all the way up to the interstate, and filled all the bills. When you go and get on the interstate, on, Flat Springs Road, you get a hole going in and a hole coming out, because the surface was not the same. And, but you don't have that problem there. But why, you know, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think, I appreciate what the comment is. Mr. Wilson also had to wait, I think, 6 years to get the dam fixed in front of his house after the storm washed it out.
I don't know about all that, it went too toward me.
So I don't know.
And I go through that way all the time.
Representative Caskey, was fond of noting folks that the country fought an entire civil war over the span of less than 5 years, and it took longer than that to fix one down. So I don't know that the preferential treatment is shown Mr. Wilson, but if it has, I'm happy to say it.
Well, it appeared so to me because, I really didn't know there was anything wrong with it. It come out when they zip, it's done. That's all I've got to go by is that. And it's just not right. Because Mr. Wilson hadn't done anything for this part of town in 35 years.
Well, we've heard you on your concerns and happy to check on them. But Mr. Wilson's house is not a matter that's before us.
Yes, that's what I was trying to find out.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's all I've got, is if you would just,
Madam Clerk, you have his contact information. We'll check out and see what the difference is between Green Street and York Street are, and see if we can get that.
okay, that's just it. How many cars, there's too many cars for one house in a neighborhood? That is, I'm talking about Brookwood here.
So you mentioned that Brookwood was a subdivision. I don't know if y'all have any individual homeowner restraints, covenants, anything like that.
That's what I asked.
I have no clue. I don't know. Some cars are subdivided.
Some places have got, anywhere from 6 to 8 cars. And they're infringing on the neighbors, they've got so many cars. And, one place, the guys got so much junk around there that, nobody on Brookwood will come to these meetings because they don't think it will do any good. They think it's a waste of time. But I've been living there long enough, and I got run out of one neighborhood because I wouldn't do anything good.
I think you've come and spoken before, haven't
Most, never had. I haven't.
you?
I got run out of over there. I was born in over there.
It's good to see you again. It's our recollection that you've been before.
Yes.
We will check on it. Thank you. Now, if y'all don't mind, we've had a pretty lengthy discussion. Let's take a 5-minute break. And we will reconvene back at 7:25. Temporarily adjourned. Watch.